We all love to speculate about the future. Sometimes it'll be things like, will stores become obsolete from online shopping, or will there be flying cars in the future, and even possibilities of interplanetary exploration. While all these examples are thought-provoking questions to think about, one particular question has always fascinated me, and that question is, will the students in the future learn about us the same way we learn about other past events? Will history classes in the future teach about our current situation? At first glance, it might seem like an obvious yes because history moves forward with time. But at the same time, the main things taught in history classrooms are either events that happened a really long time ago or major events like wars. There could be a chance that our lives could be skipped over entirely. It's very hard to anticipate something in the future, especially when you're in the most peaceful time period in human history. So to even approach this question, we must define some variables to set our situation in perspective. Without them, we'll have to go into a whole load of messy hypotheticals that'll ruin our conjecture. The first thing to define is a time frame. Calling the future somewhere around 2200 is just fine. Next, we'll assume some scenarios because it'll really narrow some things down for us. The first assumption is that there will not be any major wars between now and 2200. The second one is that no other species has made an impact on the human race. This basically means that there won't be any global emu war, a virus that wipes out half the population, or really just any major biological interference of the human race. Third, the Earth is still stable and climate change was somehow resolved without us needing to change the way we live. And lastly, we didn't leave the Earth to go to Mars just yet. Keep in mind that all these situations are very plausible, and any one of them happening will likely change the way we teach history. Now that we have these assumptions set in place, we should set 200 years of history in perspective. American history stretches back 250 years, and it's taught in schools all over America. But the fact that something that occurred 250 years ago is being taught today doesn't ensure that 200 years later they'll teach the present. Here's why. American history is not really that large. It's actually just a tiny sliver of the world's history. It's actually so tiny that most schools in the UK don't even teach it. And if they did, they likely talked about Locke's philosophy, the Age of Enlightenment, and other ideologies that sparked the American Revolution. And why would they even talk about it? They've got a history of thousands of years, and America is just really a side note when compared to it. So it doesn't make sense to compare 200 years in the future to 200 years in the past. What we really should do is look at our time as a time period. The assumptions we've set will even likely guarantee that our time will become a time period of itself. Similarly to how we looked at the past 200 years and compared it to the next 200 years, we'll look at the past time period and compare it to the future one. The closest past period is likely the Cold War, so we'll examine how it's taught. The first thing that we notice is that, well, it is taught in schools all over the world. The next thing is that, unlike most other periods, we actually learned about things apart from the political tension, such as the fashion and music of the time. This was evident because of much more recording possibilities that allowed for more information about the cultural elements to be preserved and looked at later. This is important because that's what our period is mainly about. There's nothing happening at the scale of the Cold War or any world wars as of yet. But there are major cultural renovations happening right now. Similarly to how technology recorded things back in the Cold War, it'll help record things in our time period and be used as information for the future, but on a much larger scale. See, with the highly advanced technology of our time, we're going through what I like to call hypertranscription. Basically what it means is that every little thing that has happened has been recorded somewhere. This will give a heap of information to future students about our lives. However, that's not all there is to become a part of history. Despite my assumptions, something major does have to happen to be taught to students. And that's even why culture during the Cold War is taught, because something major, the Cold War, happened. However, though our time period does not fit the requirements to be taught in most history classes, it can teach something else. It can become its own branch of history. This isn't a new concept. There are loads of histories out there focusing on cultures of specific decades, and our time period will surely become a major one due to much more information than previous ones. To me, the thought of an entire class focusing on the art, music, politics, and trends of our time is extremely exciting. Some things that I think will definitely be taught are how the internet rose, what social medias were used and how, the dramatic technological advances for sure, the constant hate towards millennials, memes like everyone anticipated, privacy concerns, and I say Trump will even get his own little unit because of the impact he made on the internet and the press. The final verdict of this video is that while our time period will likely be skipped over in traditional history classes, our cultural elements will definitely be taught in another one. So just remember, hypertranscription